Hello everyone and welcome back to CUSA All Access, and boy are we glad to be here alongside my main men Devin Lockhart and Denver Sikorsky. We cannot wait for another fantastic episode. First of all, gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Good. How about yourself? We got some sports to talk about.
Oh yeah, lots of sports to talk about. What about you, Denver? How are you feeling today?
It's been an exciting week and weekend of football. I'm glad to be here with y'all.
I'm glad to be here, and I think we got a lot to talk about, a lot on the agenda. Before we get started, though, I want to give a brief shout out and say that our thoughts and wishes are with the people involved with Hurricane Helene, especially in the Carolinas. There's been a lot of damage recently, and I think we've all seen the social media videos that have taken place, and it's crazy to see the damage, but the Liberty Appalachian State game was affected by that. It was actually canceled because of Hurricane Helene. So I want to send our best thoughts and wishes with all those impacted by the hurricane, and hope that you are able to overcome any issues that you're having right now. So I want to send a brief shout out for that. Moving on to our business today, we've got some breaking news into CUSA All Access, and that kind of leads into what I want to start with. This is going to be a conference realignment special of CUSA All Access because there's some big news out of CUSA, guys. UTEP is now in the Mountain West. They're moving over to the Mountain West Conference. This one feels kind of shocking. I'm not going to say it's something we didn't possibly see coming, but of all teams to leave CUSA first, UTEP. What is going on here?
I think it's regards to how the Mountain West is shaping up, and that includes Boise. They're leaving that and going to Pac-12. Now they're the powerhouse of that conference, I would say.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
Especially with that star running back. Wow.
Gene T, yeah.
Yep, he's crazy. I remember on Sports Ballin', you got one of the hot takes was he was going to win Heisman.
Yep, that's right.
That's going to be interesting to watch. But the powerhouse goes away. So in slips a new blood. Do you think they'll be the powerhouse? Do you guys think that?
I do not think that. Here's the thing about UTEP, and then I'll let Denver talk more about this because I'm sure he's got similar feelings on this as I do. But UTEP, historically, at least in football, has not been the best program in the world. 3-9 last year, 0-4 to start off this season. They're the lone team in Conference USA outside of Kennesaw State that does not have a victory. And UTEP is a long tenured player in Conference USA. They have not won a conference championship since 2000 when they were in the WAC. They've won 2 conference titles all time, never a CUSA championship. Yep. And it's not just football either. Men's basketball has been solid, but not otherworldly. Last won a title in 2005. Women's basketball last won a title in 2012. It's not like UTEP is a historically great program, but I do understand at least part of it going to the Mountain West because, yes, they are more in the western United States than they are the eastern part of the country. So from that end, I guess it makes sense, but it just still feels so sudden to me, Denver.
Yeah, they're back more in their area, and I love what the president said. She came out with the statement, and she said, joining Mountain West will bring us back into competition with historic rivals in the West. And then she went on to say, there's no doubt this will be better for our student athletes, our fans, and for El Paso. So she believes in the future for this organization, and we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was her the nicest way she could put it, of saying, we haven't a couple years.
Those
so
people in El Paso hear you.
I think it's the way of saying, let's try to go somewhere where we actually have a fighting chance.
Yeah.
To a possibly, at least in some people's eyes, harder conference, though? Is that the right way to do it?
Yes.
Some people, but others, at the same time, soccer.
Yeah.
And volleyball. Volleyball, they're leading right now in conference.
They are?
But do you draw in money from volleyball?
Not as much as you are the money sports.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They bring in money from Conference USA with volleyball, but definitely I would say the big name sports, football, basketball, baseball,
Yeah.
you have a better chance when you go to the Mountain West. especially with the Pac-12 recreating and taking some of those teams from the Mountain West, yeah, I would say you got a better chance in Mountain West than you do in CUSA. Now, with that being said, it does take away from some of those in-state rivalries.
Right.
UTEP, Sam Houston, those are good. Texas State, yes, they're not in the Conference USA for football, but other sports. And then once you go to the Mountain West, you have less of a chance for those in-state rivalries.
Right.
And you can just look across the country, and it doesn't matter if you're in the same conference. In-state rivalries mean more. Georgia Tech, they're not in the same conference. It's still a good game to watch.
Would you like to discuss what happened this past weekend with Georgia?
There's
Full disclosure, Georgia Bulldogs fan right here.
There's some ups and downs.
okay.
There are?
But with that being said, I don't want to say too much. I think maybe we look at another route at our quarterback and maybe a different leadership role.
Ouch.
But it could change because last time a powerhouse school benched their starting quarterback was Alabama against USF. Jalen Milroe got benched in the second half. The next game, next game and on, he went off. So
He did?
I think maybe it's like we'll pull you for this game to see,
Okay.
to realize you're not really, it's not guaranteed.
Right.
And with that being said, I don't know if Kirby will do that.
Dang.
Is the thing.
I say one comment, he goes on a full rant about Georgia. I mean,
But,
that
I
shows
mean-
passion.
Yeah. But you got to look at your Miami this weekend. What do you think about Cal?
That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But you know what? Going back to the western part of the country,
Yeah.
Denver, I think and this all started with the Pac-12, obviously. When they took teams from the Mountain West, I think we all saw that there could be another wave of realignment coming. And now all of a sudden, they start looking for teams, as you would, but I didn't anticipate UTEP being the team to come over from Conference USA and really being upgraded. Now, I'm a little biased, but I think programs like MTSU, Western Kentucky, have higher stock value than UTEP.
Yes, absolutely.
So what's
Liberty
the deal?
especially.
Yeah, Liberty especially. We'll go more into that later. But what's the deal with UTEP moving on to the Mountain West while other teams are here in Conference USA still?
Honestly, I have no idea because I've never been high on UTEP at all. Like you said, I feel like a school like Western Kentucky or Liberty or Jacksonville State, they deserve to go to Mountain West Conference because, you know, they're better in most sports. And UTEP, they've been lower in football, men's basketball, women's basketball. You guys said volleyball was their draw.
Right.
But I have no idea. I think MTSU, mainly Western Kentucky, and Jacksonville State, Liberty, those are schools that I feel should be a level up over UTEP. UTEP should be the school staying in Conference USA, really, but what happens, you know?
I mean, that's the way I thought of it. And another thing is, I understand from a certain degree why you go and get UTEP, at least as far as city size is concerned. El Paso, 677,000 people, not a math guy, as you can tell. 677,000, pretty big city.
Yep.
One of the bigger Western markets that the Mountain West is going to have. So from that basis, I get it. But at the same time, I don't understand from a prestige standpoint what the draw, when I know we're really beating on UTEP here, but it just seems odd to me that they would do that.
The thing is, I would say they got pulled because of location. You got Texas, and then you have UTEP in Texas,
Right.
this side. But my question to both you guys is, UTEP comes, then Sam Houston, and then does it start taking the whole state of Texas away? Then, once the state of Texas goes away, does Liberty go to the Sun Belt? Because they're a power conference, right? They're a power school right now in the CUSA. Sun Belt's getting a little name, as well as you have that JMU rivalry. That would be an interesting one.
Yep.
They could play a team like App State, who can give anyone a run for their money. Most years.
Right.
Not this year, but most years. And then you have CUSA starting to disperse. Who would be pooled from other conferences because the CUSA starts dispersing? If UTEP went, now Sam Houston, then all of Texas, then Virginia goes, and then it just starts getting thinner and thinner, where it's like, okay, who can we repool? Yes, we do have Delaware coming in, and we have Missouri State come in.
Yep.
They're going to be interesting, especially Missouri State. They're really good in the FCS.
Yep. Especially this year, looking very solid. I think they were 3-1 or so to start the season.
Yep, 3-1. The Dakotas, they're just top tier. Would we maybe bring in someone like them?
I would love to see it, but that brings its whole, another range of problems because the Dakota schools have always been staunchly loyal to the FCS.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to have the desire, the want to go. We've talked about this with our supervisor, our Middle Tennessee News director, Dan Eschenfelder. He's been mentioned a few times on MTM programs, and he's kind of a savant, a professional when it comes to the FCS. And he tells us that he doesn't think the Dakota schools would want to come to Conference USA.
Yeah.
He thinks more Mountain West.
More Mountain West, but would his SIU Salukis, would they go to Conference USA? A bigger name school? They're up there in the FCS, but they're not way over there in the Mountain West range area where they would go. Do we see those powerhouses in the FCS maybe possibly going away and upgrading to the FBS, even though the Dakotas are so loyal to them? I don't know, guys.
I mean,
it's going to be interesting.
That's a big hypothetical to me.
It is, but did you guys ever think Texas and Oklahoma would ever join SEC? Then the division, exactly.
Yeah.
Divisions go away. Last year, FSU got in a whole lawsuit with media rights trying to pull from the ACC. Rumors about Clemson.
Don't get me started.
It was It was a hypothetical. But when you really look at the past years, was it? I don't. It's a hypothetical, but I think it's on the line of, yeah, that could really happen versus that's way too hypothetical. Give or take, it may happen. I don't know about the Dakotas, but maybe, you're pulling the bigger name teams start dispersing and you're pulling in some of those FCS teams.
I could see that.
Yep.
I could see that. I think that there are, excuse me, I think that there are some Conference USA schools that are going to be like steadfastly loyal, or at least are going to try to be, which I'll go more in depth with that in a second. I do want to ask Denver this question. To me, at least, I was talking about this with Dan earlier. That's the second time he's gotten mentioned on the show. He's becoming a celebrity on CUSA All Access. But I asked him, I was like, if you're a team in Conference USA, if you're an MTSU Western Kentucky, especially in this modern age of college athletics, Denver, do you feel stable where you're at right now? Because it seems to me like, and it's been like this for the last 20 years or so, but Conference USA seems to be like a revolving door, and you never know if the conference is going to make it to the next year. Is that a place that you want to be right now?
When it comes to MTSU, I honestly don't know because it always depends on your level of play if you're playing like average or you're playing above your expected level of play, you're going to stay in that conference with the other teams. And then you could possibly go up to another conference. And then if you start to go down and you're not playing that well, it depends. You could go down to a lower conference, or you could just stay in your conference for now. But when it comes to additions to CUSA, it could be anybody. And it would probably shock me, because whenever teams join a new conference, it shocks me, even if people think it doesn't shock them. So it just all depends on who we could add or what happens. So
I guess that's the main thing at the end of the day. It's like, what is the future and who are those teams going to be? That's the only way to know for sure.
Yeah.
And speaking on that topic, I think we should look at who is likely to leave, especially in the future, because to me, and Devin, you brought this up earlier, there are some certainties in Conference USA about teams that it seems like are going to leave in the future.
Yep.
First one that comes to mind is Liberty. To me, Liberty's been a team that we were always glad to have, but it always felt like they were destined for at least quote-unquote bigger things.
I feel like this was a little pit stop for them.
A pit stop?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, you're going around NASCAR track, you run out of gas or need tire change.
Yeah.
Liberty pulled into their crew. They pulled into Conference USA, their crew area, couple years.
Yeah.
And then they're off to bigger names. But off your point you made earlier, Denver, WKU, they're playing a little bit better than most people expected.
yeah.
They have two powerhouse quarterbacks that are just awesome. TJ Finley, he's from the SEC, Auburn.
He is.
But if WKU goes, does MTSU follow? Or will they go without
good
them
question.
and
Boy.
leave the biggest rivalry in Conference USA, 100 miles of hate, out the window?
That's a good question.
That's tough.
I wouldn't want them to leave then.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't want them to leave.
You don't want them to leave,
It's like you need those rivalries.
Exactly.
You need those rivalries.
But
for
if you
the
take
fans.
away WKU and Liberty, MTSU starts climbing the rankings, and
That's true.
maybe they will become a powerhouse. And then, if they become a powerhouse in Conference USA, they could take that next step.
That's true. But at the same time, do you really feel better about it if Conference USA is weakened to that much of a point?
True.
And by the way, side note, we're not trying to bag on Conference USA.
Not at all.
Like, it's called CUSA All Access, and I know it seems like we're kind of diminishing CUSA. It's a great conference. At the end of the day, we just want it to be the best G5 conference.
Yep.
That's what we're aiming for.
But as well as we're stating, some of those teams that are in the conference, maybe they move up
Right.
to a Power 4/5 next year.
Exactly. Liberty being one.
Exactly.
I could very easily see Liberty in like the Big 12 or
Yeah.
ACC in the future.
We're not saying that Conference USA is bad. We're just saying maybe those good teams have proved themselves enough where they make that next step up to the big name schools.
Yes.
And have a higher chance, especially with this 12-team playoff, have a higher chance of getting in, making more money, because if you get in the playoffs, you get incentives,
Yep.
and then start building their reputation. But then it also leads to, look where they came from. CUSA. It kind of helps CUSA's reputation as well.
It does. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Devin's not trying to derail anyone, so hopefully nobody's getting mad at him right now for those comments. But he's basically saying that, like, if WKU leaves, those rivalries between MTSU and other schools, they leave, it's not as exciting. But at the same time, if better schools leave, that gives chances for smaller schools to climb up the ladder. So that's how I feel about that.
I think that's a great way to put it. And we talked about the rivalry. To me, the 100 Miles of Hate is the premier Conference USA rivalry. And to answer your question, Devin, it feels a little too big to lose, especially around here. People are not going to take too kindly if they don't get 100 miles of hate. Maybe there's a way to preserve it out of conference, like what Oregon, Oregon State, and Washington and Washington State are doing. But, man, it's just, I remember this year, September 14th, a couple weeks ago, everyone was so excited, so amped, so hyped for that game. Even if MTSU lost that game, they were still excited to be there and witness that rivalry and that tension because it is there and it is real. And losing that, which we've seen some rivalries go to the gravesite, Bedlam's no longer a thing.
No.
So it feels like something, though, that especially in Conference USA, you just can't lose.
The other thing is that's a moneymaker for MTSU or WKU because Duke, they're a Power 4 school. They came to MTSU the week after for homecoming. There were more fans for the WKU game because it is such a distinguished rivalry. Then that gets into the money game of we lose all these ticket sales. What game is going to be on our schedule that we know we're going to be able to bring in X amount of fans and help our school out in any possible way.
Right.
So that's a big question. I think the athletic directors are concerned about.
Yeah, as you would be.
Ticket sales. Okay, so how does that affect it going down the road? And who is a guaranteed moneymaker like MTSU? Guaranteed. Why? Because it's such a distinguished rivalry. And with that being said, you take that away, now you don't have a rivalry. And this is not a hot take, but in my opinion, rivalries make college football.
I agree.
That is 100% true.
Exactly.
Yep, that's 100% true. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that point. And Denver, you know it as well as I do. Rivalries in college football are kind of the DNA, the backbone. That's what the sport was built on.
Yeah.
If you take that away, you're kind of taking away the spirit of the sport.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I need to talk to Western Kentucky right now. The athletic director, do not move this team. If you move this team, it will be boring for MTSU fans because this is the game, it's the game of the year for us MTSU fans. And it is so much fun to go to. 100 miles of hate, it goes a long way. So I'm hoping that Western Kentucky stays. If they leave, it'll be very saddening, but I think they will stay.
But
hoping.
Question for you.
Yeah.
You just told them not to leave. What if they leave and they're like, oh, but we're taking MTSU with us? Do you think you would be happy with that? Or do you think,
That's a good
not yet, hold on, we got to build up our program first. Yes, every program when you're entering a new conference is rebuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is WKU and MTSU on that same rebuilding level where, yeah, we're going over here. I'm taking you with us. That's a question.
That's a good question.
Do you think you would be okay with that if WKU left, but they went,
I don't know.
we're taking MTSU with us to keep that distinguished rivalry?
I'm 50-50. I'd be fine with it because the rivalry's still there, but it just depends on what conference they go to.
Yeah.
So
I guess
that's what it's all about.
I guess that's the answer at the end of the day. And you know, we were talking about teams leaving CUSA. Liberty, obviously, the big one that comes to mind.
Definitely.
Probably have the criteria to be a Power 4 school, and they've already won CUSA championships in football, women's soccer, softball, probably more than I can't even remember. That's in 1 year of Conference USA. So they've already done that in one season. They've also got a lot of great people behind the program with a lot of money. Let's be fair, that are backing them. So I think a conference like the American at some point is probably going to look at Liberty and say, yeah, we need you in CUSA. But another team that I want to see what you guys think about, FIU. And the reason I say FIU is big city, Miami, Florida. And they've got the backing
Stadium.
you took the
Yep.
words right out of my mouth. You've got the backing of Mr. 305 himself on your stadium. I mean, to me, FIU would make a lot of sense for a conference like the American to snatch up at some point, because we always know that these bigger conferences are looking for bigger cities to represent them. So FIU, solid program. They've done well in women's soccer. Just upset Liberty, by the way.
Yeah, that
and handed them their first loss of the season. Great uniforms, best in college football.
They
some
have
of the best in college football.
Stellar
Fire uniforms.
Uniforms, those baby blues this weekend. That was that was something.
Great women's tennis program as well. Won the women's tennis championship. Probably with the second best women's college basketball program last year outside of MTSU. Played very well throughout the season. Do you guys think the American would take interest in FIU? And could you see FIU as the next best option for potential relocation after Liberty?
I think so. You brought up, that's a good point. The other good point, that when you were listing off, FIU upsetting this person, having a solid team, they're able to recruit.
Yeah.
When you recruit, you help other teams in your conference recruit.
Yes.
Because they're like, yeah, we play this schedule. And then you're like, oh, I've heard of that school. How good is that school? Then you see that, you're like, I got a friend. Go to that school.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have like a mutual relationship. But then you have, the rivalry maybe in the conference. But Miami, 80 degrees practically every day.
Every day. I went there in March and it was still 85 degrees sunny.
Exactly.
Whole weekend.
March here, I'm in a hoodie, jeans.
It can be 45 degrees in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Freezing.
Yeah.
I love it here at MTSU.
Yes.
But when it's 80 constantly and you have Mr. 305 backing you up, if I was a recruit, I'm going to FIU if they get transferred.
Ooh.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
But right now in the conference, what Derek Mason put out, those good bones, the blue collar worker.
Burrow built, middle made.
Exactly.
Yes.
As a recruit, I would go there because, and I think you would have a better chance of playing, as well as he'll develop you on the field and off the field to be that better person. Have those good bones. Be a Burrow-built, middle-made guy.
Yeah.
And I think recruiting-wise, he's the better option. But going to Miami,
It's Miami, man.
exactly. And you know that, especially
Oh, yeah.
with your Hurricanes.
That's right.
Yeah. But I just, that plays in my opinion, that's the biggest factor. In my opinion, that's the biggest factor when it comes to upgrading.
Yeah.
Is you have Mr. 305 backing you.
You do. A lot of other big donors in that city as well.
Yep. But where you are and the location is changes the game.
Yep.
What do you think, Denver?
First off, shout out to Mr. 305. I mean, who wouldn't want Florida in their conference? Florida's big time. Like you guys said, women's basketball, women's soccer, that's where they're big. They do struggle. They've been struggling a little bit in football and men's basketball. It's not all about football and basketball, but those smaller sports, that's where they've been on top. And I think I agree with Devin. I think I could see them moving to the American Conference. So it's going to be interesting to see.
And remember, the American already has Florida Atlantic, who is basically right next door. You can actually, when you're flying out of Miami, Boca Raton is literally right there. You can see it right outside your window. So you have two teams that are already big rivals in the same conference, and that rivalry game, once again, like it was in Conference USA just 2 short years ago, becomes a conference game, which I think everybody in that area would be in favor of.
A conference in-state rivalry. We
Yes,
talked about
yep.
this early in the game.
It's
Yep.
insane.
Georgia Tech,
Yep.
Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl. With that game, you never know what happens. You know, the kick six. Everyone remembers that one. That makes college football. That also has an effect on other rivalries, though,
Yeah.
that aren't in the state.
That is very true.
TV time. You may have Miami versus Florida State and
Great rivalry.
Florida International playing Florida Atlantic. Who would you rather have on if you weren't? Actually, we're gonna throw this question to Denver because
Okay.
you
Oh,
are the
great.
Miami fan.
Oh, yeah,
great.
sorry.
I know nothing about
we would
Miami.
have a little exactly. We would have a little biasness, so we're gonna toss it to Denver real fast. Would you, off what you've seen from Miami versus Florida State, FAU, FIU, would you rather have on ESPN? Let's say they're both fighting for the 3:30 spot on ESPN or CBS. Would you rather have FAU versus FIU or Miami versus Florida State this year? Florida State's having a bit of a year.
Florida State's not doing that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of bad.
Who'd you say? Florida State, and what was the other choice? You said Florida. You said Miami and Florida State, and who else?
Florida Atlantic and FIU.
Think about this one, Denver.
You put me on the hot spot with this one.
But I can't go to Dylan
'Cause
because he's
he's-
the Miami fan,
Yeah.
so he would be the bias.
yeah,
He'd
he's
be
gonna
like,
put his
"Oh,
bias into it."
give me Miami,"
I may
because
not.
he'd want.
I may be very fair. You know what? I will be fair, and I'll say this. Miami is going to destroy Florida State, so there's no point in watching that game unless you're a fan of either one of those teams or you just enjoy blowouts. Whereas Florida Atlantic versus FIU, this season they've already played, was a fantastic game.
It was.
Yes, they went back and forth. It was pretty close most of the way. So if you want a good competitive game with a big rivalry where the result is unpredictable, yeah, FAU, FIU is the better option.
It was an Ollie Frazier slugfest. That's
Yes.
what it was. This whole game. I mean, compared to a blowout, I'm a little shocked by your answer because you're the Miami fan.
No,
That was
I'll be-
non-biased.
And you would
Hey,
want to
listen.
watch the Miami game. It's because it's Miami. But
Yes.
I agree with you.
But I'll be happy to watch Miami beat the brakes off of Florida State because my feelings for Florida State are well documented. I have no regard for what has happened to them this year. I think
Yep.
it is, let me just put it this way. I think it's well deserved.
A blessing in disguise.
Yes. You know, last year, and I'll go back on topic in a second, but last year was tough as a Miami fan. This year has been like a gift from the sky above. It has been unbelievable. I'll leave it at that.
You leave the state.
Yeah, you do.
You own Florida
But,
right now.
but you know, if you're outside of Miami, if you're in the G5, you've got a chance to be the best program in the G5 because you got USF, who's been solid but has struggled in recent weeks. You've got Florida Atlantic trying to find their own path in the American, and then FIU as well. So for the Panthers, going back to that, there's a chance to maybe elevate your stock, and maybe moving to the American is the way to do that.
Yeah.
Although we hope maybe they'll consider staying in CUSA and becoming one of the better programs here in the Conference USA. But I mean, hey, that option is still on the table.
Yeah.
We'll just have
We'll
to
see.
see what happens.
Yeah.
I do want to ask this because CUSA is going to probably need some new teams in the future. They're already planning future-proofing, so to speak. Next year, Missouri State and Delaware both are coming into CUSA.
Definitely.
But if realignment keeps happening at the pace that it currently is, who are some future teams that you guys, off the top of your head, who could you see joining CUSA?
I haven't really put too much thought into it. I could honestly see anybody joining. It's just
Yeah, it's pretty wide open.
yeah.
That's the thing about it, right? Because there's just so many different ways that CUSA can go, and
Yeah.
it's hard to predict exactly where you're going to find a team end up.
Exactly.
Yep. I would say you play FCS team.
Yeah,
Maybe.
about has to be, right?
Yeah, maybe SIU.
Ooh, the Salukis?
They're a top.
Oh, boy.
They're a top school in the.
You want to see Dan's school.
Not saying that, but I think the Dakotas are too loyal.
They're too loyal, yep. They're not going anywhere.
So maybe SIU and I think Montana State.
Yes.
They're too west.
Too far
They
west.
would be pulled into Mount West.
Geographically, it wouldn't make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere in the center. You're looking SIU, but you also have Delaware. They just pulled in Delaware. They
Right.
just pulled in Montana. Not Montana.
Missouri
excuse me,
State.
Missouri.
State.
Yep.
That'd be a heck of a get if they could get Montana.
If they get Montana, now we're expanding. But geographically, how would this, because it's called CUSA, Conference USA.
Right.
Are we really stuck to the middle geographically, or are we all of the United States?
Well, I mean, your furthest west team is New Mexico State, who,
Yep.
by the way, I could also see leaving for the Mountain West time because they're in the same boat as UTEP in terms of geography, pretty close to the rest of the Mountain West area. So New Mexico State, another team that could leave. But if you're right, if you're trying to expand across CUSA, then there are teams out west that you could go for. I think Conference USA's possibilities when it comes to adding teams really starts with Texas. To me, Texas is the hotbed that they need to be looking at, and Tarleton State. That's the one that, for me, that comes to mind first of all.
Yep.
They've been building a program well, currently number 14 in the country, their highest rank ever as an FCS program.
Wow.
And their seating capacity is actually already pretty good when it comes to Conference USA. 26,000 people, or 24,000 people, I should say. They invested $26 million into that new stadium. I mean, Sam Houston Stadium seats 14,000. So they're already way above the threshold for Conference USA, and they're looking good in the FCS. So I think Tarleton State could be one. I think McNeese State could also be the other one. Now, they've had some struggles in recent years, and this may be a bit of a hot take. I think they could turn it around, and they already are turning it around in the Southland. They could continue that in Conference USA. They're currently the top team in the conference. Granted, they were 1-10 a year ago, but McNeese State has a lot on their plate that they could bring to Conference USA, and I think could increase the level of the play of the football.
We're writing that one down.
All right, is that a write down?
The wall of predictions.
State.
McNeese State would be good for Conference USA. I'm not predicting they're going to join, but I think CUSA administration maybe should take a look at that. Because they were great back in the mid-2010s. Really good.
And you also say they will turn it around shortly?
I think they already are starting, because they're, what are they, 4-2
Yeah.
to start the year? They're already looking pretty good. They may win
are.
the Southland this season.
Yeah.
And that would give you another Louisiana team. Imagine a McNeese State versus Louisiana Tech Conference USA rivalry. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Here's the other thing.
What's that?
You have a team in Louisiana, but if FIU goes, who do you have in Florida?
That's a good
That's
question.
Do you try to pull from someone from
That's
Florida?
tough.
Because you're trying to keep the geographical level,
You are?
but Florida already went away. So you're like,
Who are you
that
left with in
state just
Florida, though?
completely went away.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Denver, can you think of any Florida teams off the top of your head right now? Because I'm honestly having trouble thinking of who you would go for after that.
No. I'm
Yeah.
trying so hard to
that's-
think.
That just hit me, and I was like, well, that whole state just got scratched.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a huge state to lose.
Exactly. Monumental. So, if FIU goes, one state gets scratched. So, do we try to pull from the West, or do we try to pull from a
One by
bigger
one.
name state because we just lost such a big state, FIU, if they go?
I don't know, but
That's tough.
you know, hey, I do think there is a school out there, and this is a long shot, but you know, there's a school out there trying to raise money to get into the Pac-12, and I've got a theory that maybe, just maybe, they may want to join Conference USA if they can get a few certain things right. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Sacramento State is the team I'm talking about, and they have been pretty darn solid in recent years. Maybe, just maybe, we could expand out to the West Coast. Now, I know travel-wise, that would make a lot of sense, but that would give you California. And imagine having that kind of market. Sacramento's no small town. I mean, the Kings are there.
Yep.
There's a professional MLS club there, right? So
Yes.
there's a lot that you could work with in Sacramento. I mean, Denver, do you think that's a possible idea, right?
I think so. Sacramento's big time, like you said. They're a big place. The population is amazing. The fans are great. I hope so. But I agree with you on that point. Sacramento State would be a good addition.
I mean, I think the sky's the limit as far as
Yeah.
who you could add in CUSA. Let's be honest. It's going to be hard to figure out exactly who's going to join CUSA, what things are going to look like.
There's many possibilities.
Conference realignment is so tricky. You
Yeah.
never know
Yeah.
who's going where. You don't know until you finally hear the rumors, read an article from Pete Thamel as to, all right, this team's going here. That's how I figured out about UTEP today. I was like, I was scrolling on my phone. I was like, oh, wow, UTEP's heading to the Mountain West. So that's the world we live in now. And conference realignment, it's probably not going to stop. I say next week we're probably going to be back here and there'll be some other move or some other rumor that's going to come up and we'll have to address it just a little bit. And at the end of the day, we just got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Yep. I think conference realignment has adjusted drastically.
Dramatically. I think you just created a new word, Devin.
Yep.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Merriam-Webster, we have to write that one in. But no, drastically, where any rumor, yeah, you have to consider it. Before 5 years ago,
Yeah.
a rumor, oh yeah, right. Now it's like, oh, this just popped up on the table. What do you have to offer? We're listening. What do you really have to offer, though?
Denver, any final thoughts on conference realignment?
I just think conference realignment is so amazing. Even if you're not fans of those teams, it's just so interesting to see which school's going to move to which conference. So it's so amazing to me. So we'll see what happens.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's very stressful for all the schools involved. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing that we hope for is that Conference USA is still alive and well in 5 or 10 years, and we're able to take our kids to MTSU games, and
Yep,
maybe
for
not in
sure.
5 to 10 years, actually. Hang on. 15 to 20 years. We're not going to have kids that fast.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is I hope that Conference USA is alive and well for years to come, and I'm sure that it will be. So I want to thank you guys for coming on today. It's been great to talk about conference realignment, and I want to thank all of you for watching this edition of CUSA All Access. We will see you next week for more Conference USA stuff, back to regularly scheduled programming. We're going to talk football, soccer, volleyball, all that good stuff. And hey, remember, if you want to watch more CUSA All Access, tune in right here to the MTN Sports YouTube channel, Devin.
And it's getting later into October, which means basketball's starting to pick up.
Yes, sir.
And those
Yep.
MTSU
Yes, sir.
women basketball last time,
big
they
time.
went
Oh, yeah.
L's down against
Yes.
Louisville in the first round.
And
That's going to be a fun one to watch.
and they took LSU and Angel Reese
Yep.
to limit in that first half.
Yeah, they were there, and I thought they would win, but there were some questionable things. But you have that coming up and
Yes.
more. So, welcome to the heart of sports season.
Yes,
in
sir.
Conference USA.
It is going to be good, guys. Thank you both for coming on once again.
Of
We'll
course.
see you guys next week, and we'll see all of you next week as well. Thank you so much for watching this edition of CUSA All Access. For Denver Sikorsky and for Devin Lockhart, I'm Dylan Simmons saying so long, and remember to always have an electric night.